Today I sat down with none other than Tim Jordan. Tim is the founder of many businesses, some successful, others less successful, and we actually jump into it, but he's pretty well known for his work with Private Label Legion, a free Facebook group that ladders up into a paid mastermind, as well as his work with Sellers Funding and many other key players in the e-commerce ecosystem. We have a really candid chat about things around failure, understanding what we're good at versus what we are not good at, and making those decisions to really double down into the areas where we add value. I hope you guys take a lot from this. I did, just knowing that Tim is extremely honest and genuine, and that no BS approach really, for me, speaks volumes. Hi, and welcome to Successful Scales, the show where I interview now successful professionals about their journey and try and garner insights onto any tips that can be applied to your business at home. Whether it's financial freedom or the exit of your company, wherever your journey may take you, the idea here is to simply learn from those who have done it before. I hope you enjoy and you get some value out of this. Buckle up and enjoy the episode. Tim, mate, welcome to an episode of Successful Scales. Had to throw the mate in there. I see Australia and our poorer brothers or cousins, New Zealand, just sitting there on the map behind you. So it was a trigger. But anyway, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, it's great to sit down. Listen, I've been privy to watching what I would actually define as a bit of magic that you have up your sleeve in how you operate. I personally have been really impressed. I'm looking here, I'm seeing Sellers Funding, I'm seeing Private Label Legion. Before I jump in and I absolutely butcher your background and everything that makes you from a professional perspective, love you to tell the audience, anyone who might be living under a rock and not know who you are, a little bit about yourself.
Well, I think you're overselling it, but I'll give you the intro anyways. I got into e-commerce by accident. Before then, about 2015, I was working as a full-time firefighter paramedic, and I had a part-time job doing logistics and procurement for a prime contractor for the U.S. State Department. So the groups that go in and do consulate and embassy work, and we're also putting in infrastructure in Iraq and Afghanistan at the time. So that was a part-time job. I got my feet wet with logistics and supply chain and kind of international business. And I found out you could sell stuff on Amazon. Long story short, did really, really well at that in a wholesale model. But I realized, hey, we got to start creating our own brands, because if our supply chain shuts down, we're toast, right? So, or if our wholesale contacts shut down. So I started using the contacts I had, like in China, places like that, all over Asia, really. And creating my own products, launching them on Amazon in 2015, 2016, of course, is when it was easy to do. And from there, I spun up a company doing sourcing and logistics, mostly out of China, eventually even opened up in Central America and Guatemala, set up 3PLs here in the US. So we were sourcing for a lot of people. We were shipping, we were consolidating, we were prepping, we were warehousing, and it gave me kind of a unique perspective of what works or what doesn't. So to do marketing for that company, which is called Hickory Flats, I was doing content. I was getting on podcasts and webinars, going to events. And it turns out I think I'm better at content than I was at logistics, because that business, I eventually sold it, not having been very successful, very saturated market. Since then, I've operated, launched, and exited several e-commerce brands, but I've also found I have this crazy niche for strategic consulting and like collaborations and business development, right? So I'm not a good corporate employee, but I love working with corporations in the space that have teams that I could throw ideas to and execute. So I've worked as a strategic advisor for fintech companies, logistics companies, software companies, marketing companies, investment banks, all sorts of crazy stuff, right? And just kind of got to see the crazy world that we live in e-commerce. At one point, one of my consultancies was Sellers Funding, and I came on board with them as a chief growth officer for about a year, kind of helped them put some systems together, some teams, and then I'm actually stepping out of that role right now back to a contractor advisory role and partnering with them on events and some stuff we're doing. So right now I'm selling online. I do have the Private Label Legion community, which is just a free online community. We don't really care about big numbers. We care about engagement. We have a paid mastermind that's part of that. I'm partners with Norm Farrar on that. and then just doing collaborations, partnerships with other companies in the space, getting to keep my kind of toes dipped into a lot of water, and hosting the AMPM podcast, which is one of the most well-known and longest running Amazon selling podcasts in the world. So big list.
Yeah, and here you are telling me, do you think I've oversold you? I feel like even with my introduction, I've undersold the shit out of you. So come on, mate.
Well, listen, just because I'm doing a lot doesn't mean I'm doing any of it well. There's a caveat there.
Well, like I was saying to you before we hit record, I've seen you operating as a strategic consultant, working with sellers funding and a few other ventures. And, for me, looking in and sort of being the fly on the wall, it's very clear that you're very adept to where your skill sets are, how to bring the right people in, how to actually take action, rather than just, there's a lot of fluff, I would say, that exists, just not just in the space, but in general. And so, I've not just heard of you, seen what you've done. I've been in the room with you. So I have a pretty good sense of how you operate. And so that builds for me that level of impression too. So yeah, mate, my hands off from how many things I wrote down there. I mean, such a fascinating background and experience you have. And I think that diversity and the cross-pollination of experiences and ideas, like that's where you get the best outcomes and the best objectives. When I look at what we've done for Scala, for our consulting business, we took mostly a agency focused creative design principle experience into what's a little bit more stale in traditional management consulting, and we've created a much more fluid and engaging process for people to sort of make it more simple to understand and easy to digest. It's still a complex thing, but I think that when you have people with very different experiences, or when you yourself possess and have experienced many different things, that's when you can really bring an X factor to the table. So again, super apparent. I want to start at the start here. Firefighter. How long were you a firefighter for? Mate, walk me through that, because that, for me, I feel like it says a lot of things about you, but without making assumptions, tell me.
Well, I think what it says about me is I didn't want a corporate job. I went to school for business, and while I was in college, I was super poor, in fact, living on food stamps here in the US. I wasn't qualified for food stamps as a college student just because I had zero money, working 2 or 3 part-time jobs. But the small city I went to college in had a program where if you were a volunteer firefighter, you got paid per call, right? So they didn't pay you, but volunteers, and it was a bunch of us college students, really. If the alarm went off, we'd go and we'd get paid per call. They opened up a program where they said, hey, we want 6 of you to become full-time firefighters. We can't pay you. I said, crap. They said, but we'll give you free housing. And I was paying a lot for dorms. So we basically, they built an apartment on the back of the main fire station downtown and said, you can live here for free. We'll give you a food stipend. You just have to log 40 hours a week. So even if we were out on the weekends or in and out during class, every time we walked in, we punched in. Every time we walked out, we punched out. And that let the city increase their fire prevention safety rating. Oh, we have 6 full-time firefighters. It's kind of a scam, right? But it's cool. I got to live with a bunch of cool dudes. We weren't on campus. So
you went through the training, though.
They sent us through kind of a rudimentary training. It was pretty light, right? And I thought, hey, this is an adventure. I'll never do this again. But when I left college, moved down to Alabama, followed my now wife down here, is where she's from. Man, every time a fire truck would drive down the road, I was looking at it, like, man, I wish I was on that. So I applied for the fire department here. The year I applied, there was over 2,500 applicants, and they only hired 25 of us. And a lot of the guys in my class had been applying for like 6 years, 7 years. One guy even 12 years, and his dad was a district chief. It took him 12 years, and somehow I got on the first time. So I was pretty good at it. I graduated top of my class in fire academy, second in my class in medic school, and then got wrapped up in some of the cool like specialty teams. Like imagine police has SWAT. Well, fire department rescue has what's called urban search and rescue teams. So I became a structural collapse specialist, a hazmat technician, a confined space specialist, high angle rescue specialist, low angle, swift water, just a bunch of stuff, right? And I ended up, going on some national.
How long was this for?
So I did that for about 10 years. So after 10 years, I decided, hey, this is all fun and games. This is great. I was working at one of the busiest stations. We were running like 20 calls a shift, right? So we were we were always moving. It was crazy experiences, but I found myself wanting to be on my computer. I'd come in, I'd check my gear off. When I technically left, I was an engineer. So I'd drive the truck, run all the equipment, all that stuff, check my truck off. I go straight back to my bedroom, get on my computer and start checking Amazon sales or checking my shipping systems or whatever it was. And I realized, hey, I've done this 10 years. My retirement's going to vest. I think it's time for me to walk away because, I want to follow my other passion, which is business. I figured out entrepreneurism was my passion. So at 10 years, they'd let me have my retirement. So 10 years in one day, I turned in my paperwork, took my retirement, rolled it out, dumped all of my retirement back into my business, and kind of haven't looked back since. So I guess that's been 3 or 4 years ago now. Time's flying, and here we are.
Mate, well, I mean, it's almost like the origin story, right? I think that it says a lot about, the experiences that you've had, that level of discipline. You've really excelled in a specific field. 10 years is a long time to actually really get to the core of it. You've done great things, and you've sort of decided that, entrepreneurship is a core passion, and you've moved into it. I think that having that level of structure, discipline, training, like that's at the baseline of any success, in my opinion, that I've ever experienced. It's that repetition, it's that commitment, it's the long-term drive, not looking at those incrementals like, my sales were up yesterday, that's great. Tomorrow, shit, a week ago was pretty awful as well. It's not about, you're not looking and measuring it in those moments in time. You're measuring it over long periods, understanding what am I doing to get better. So makes a lot of sense to me. And also, I think, you said you were an engineer by the end, like those as well, in my experience, when I'm working with people inside of Escala in particular, I mean, they make the best team members because they are just so meticulous, methodical, and wired for process, documentation, and building systems. So it's a fundamental skill that a lot of people, particularly entrepreneurs, miss.
Yep, agreed.
So you went from that to, I mean, at what point in time did the procurement into products, sending them to Iraq, when did that at what point in the timeline?
That was a part-time job for me, at the fire station. So I would literally go in and check off my gear. We do our daily training, unless an alarm went off, man, I was trying to take bids for Russian dump truck tires or for diesel generators out of the UK or Quest protein bars, whatever you can imagine. Have you seen that movie War Dogs?
Yeah, I have.
So that was me, but not weapons. In that movie, they go around and they're providing weapons to the U.S. military. So it was at the same time, we were even using the same systems they mentioned in the movie, like fedbizops.gov, right, where they put out this stuff. So anything that was non-weaponry, I was doing. So it was the infrastructure, it was refueling systems, it was air conditioning units for barracks, it was everything that the State Department ran. So I was involved with the entire operation to set up the entire power grid at Kandahar Air Base in Afghanistan. We did fleet and like vehicle management for everything going on at Bagram Air Base. I mean, like, it was crazy, the stuff that I was doing, and it was part-time. So I'd literally be negotiating multi-million-dollar purchases, standing outside the fire station so my captain couldn't hear me because I was supposed to be doing some EMS training, and I was taking these phone calls. It was nuts. Just fell into it by accident, turned out to be good at it.
Wow, pretty wild. I mean, what did you pick up through that experience?
Just that there's a lot of ways to be in business without being corporate, right? Like, we were cowboys, man. We were figuring stuff out. I got to witness duffel bags of cash being handed over. I've got to fly in planes with no tail numbers, like even in, very corporate America, there were areas where people just could make stuff up and go and try it and experiment. And that was like, that kind of hit a chord that I think I had in me, which was this natural desire to be entrepreneurial, right? But I got to do it with a really, really big budget, and I got to do it with very little oversight, as essentially a startup company that was supplying stuff to the State Department. And I started also learning, of course, supply chain logistics, how to ship stuff around. I don't talk about it much, but at the same time, we started a company in Kenya, right? Nairobi, Kenya, and with some contacts that I had, and we started buying heavy machinery in the US, Caterpillar equipment. So we were buying bulldozers, road graders, large excavators. And I had some commercial property, and we would bring them to my property. We'd paint them up, we'd fix all the hydraulic hoses, make them all nice and shiny, and put them on boats and send them to Nairobi, Kenya, of all places, and sell them to big land developers. So then I was doing all sorts of crazy stuff, but I started learning logistics and supply chain. The heavy equipment is what took me to China, because after the Beijing Olympics, a lot of these big contractors have gone over there and done construction and left wonderfully, meticulously maintained Caterpillar equipment. And I was going and buying, 80,000 pound bulldozers in Shanghai, disassembling them, putting them in like multiple containers and shipping them to Africa and reassembling them. And I was doing all this, like taking leave or taking holiday or calling in sick. Like every days I'd wake up.
Were you flying over there?
Yeah. So I'd like wake up in Shanghai and I'd be like, all right, it's night there. And I'd set an alarm where at like 4 p.m., 5 p.m. in Shanghai time, it was like 6 a.m. Local time for me. And I would pick up my phone and use a Google Voice number through a VPN to make it obvious that I was, and I would like call dispatch and I'd be like, oh, this is firefighter Jordan, station 11. I'm going to be sick today. Can you please advise district chief? Like, okay. So I was literally calling in sick from China. Nobody knew I was over there.
That is wild.
Leave, moving heavy equipment. It was crazy.
That is
I learned a lot doing that.
Well, I mean, talk about the entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, you're literally, I don't know, you're pulling rabbits out of magic hats. That is insane. Yes. Waking up in China, of all places, in Beijing, to call in sick. I mean, who even thinks like that is that move to think, well, I'm going to get a VPN and that VPN is going to leverage a Google phone, and the time, like that's a lot of planning right there, mate, just to call in sick.
My buddies at the fire department were convinced I was a drug dealer, because
yeah,
like we would work 24 hours. Yeah, we'd work 24 hours and then be off for 48. So we would work shifts where I'd be up all night on the phone or on Skype, whatever, all night, talking to somebody on the other side of the world. And we would leave at like 7 in the morning again, go straight to the airport. I'd fly out to Miami or to Socorro, New Mexico, or somewhere on the like right on the Mexican-Texas border for one night, come back and be at work the next shift. Well, I was going down there and buying equipment, or I'd do this, or I'd meet somebody in Miami, and they're like, this guy who makes these one night, flights to Miami or freaking, Monterey, New Mexico, like this guy must be hustling drugs, It was pretty crazy time.
I mean, that's insane, mate. I could dig into this for like the next hour, but I'm gonna spare you that. I'm sure there's some great stories we'll have over a few beers at Prosper. But you said something that I love hearing, and I feel like not enough entrepreneurs in the space have the, I don't know if humility is the word I want to use here, but just like the honesty and the understanding, like, I am good at these things, I am not good at these things. And you said that you had a few businesses in the 3PL space that were growing really fast. It was becoming super competitive and they didn't go so well. You managed to sell them, but I mean, what was it about those business? Like what was that learning experience for you like, where you said, you know what, I think for a lot of people as well, they can be stuck between a rock and a hard place. They're growing a business, everything. Like, it's all great when you got the hockey stick graph going, right? It's all great when things are going on the up and you're growing and you're learning and you're expanding and you're hiring. But it's like in those moments, and I think those are tough moments for people, is do I sell? Do I pull the pin? Do I look to pivot? Like, tell me a little bit about what that was like for you.
Yeah. And, a lot of people like to ask me about the cool stories, but we don't always talk about the failures. I mean, the deal in Africa was a disaster, massive failure. I mean, we lost so much money on it. The heavy equipment thing, man, at one point I had a business partner, he's actually from Kenya, but he's an Indian guy. Weibo is his name. And at one point we were convinced that like he had a hit out on him, like, because of this bad deal gone at the machine. Like, when you do something, you're going to make mistakes. And when we were doing stuff on the scale that we were, with this craziness that we were doing, like you're going to make mistakes. You have to. So, I learned a lot about the balance between risk and like deciding whether it's a failure or not. Meaning, when do we pull the plug? Or maybe we're not making money on this, but maybe the education that we're gaining is so valuable that like a loss is a win, right? But ultimately what I figured out was most of the things in business I am not good at. I'm not. 85% of business I suck at. Terrible. I'm horrible at managing finances. I mean, absolutely terrible. Like, look, you can't see it, but this stack of papers right here, the other side,
Yeah.
this is my 2000, part of my 2020 tax documents that I still haven't filed. I filed extensions because I'm like, I haven't got to that yet. Like right now, I do not know how much money's in my bank account, right?
Yep.
That's terrifying. I know how to make money, not manage it. I'm really bad at managing people, right? I'm great at relationships, bad at managing employees. I'm too lax. I'm too lazy. I don't want to micromanage. I don't, I could like list 50 things I'm bad at. But when I started realizing what I'm good at, I realized if I just focus on those things and skip the rest, right? Or outsource the rest, or find someone else to augment the rest, like that's when I can succeed. And I see that so many times in business with, whether it's e-commerce sellers or whatever, I know e-commerce sellers that are great at product research, but they spend 80% of the day trying to figure out how to do PPC. Dude, don't do PPC. Like outsource that junk and spend more of that time doing research, right? What I found out I'm really good at is relationships. I'm good at negotiating deals, and I'm really good at general business development. Like I can talk to anybody for an hour and whiteboard out their next 3 years. Here's what you do. Here's how you build your team. You should leverage this. Like, let's get creative here. But actually breaking that down into actionable SOPs, no way. Terrible at it. So in my world, like I figured out how to leverage relationships to bring in partners, bring in team members, find employees that I can trust, and I just give them complete autonomy to go do their thing, right? But I think that if and I think most people listening, if you would focus on the 10 or 15% of things that you're good at and quit getting bogged down on the rest, you're going to be a lot better off. Yeah, my taxes, my pro tax, I need to finish them, and I can do an extension, and eventually I'll find a tax prep guy to come in and do that has a clue what I'm doing. But like, I'm not going to sweat that. Like, I'm joking about it. Who cares? I filed the extension. I'm good for another several months. Like,
Yep.
But I could sit down for 6 days worrying about that, or to move the needle faster, I could be on this podcast with you, learning something you're talking about. Tomorrow I'm getting on a plane and going down to Miami. Last week I got on a plane and went to Austin, Texas for 2 days and just learned a ridiculous amount and fostered some relationships. I met with Zach from Gemba, and me and Kevin King went out and had, cigars one night. And like, if I focus on that, the rest kind of falls in place, right?
I think everything that you've just shared there is like the secret sauce to success for most people. And I think that it's only when you can remove the ego from the equation, thinking that you can handle everything, you can do it, only you possess this unique ability. I speak to a lot of Amazon sellers, particularly, the ones that are a little bit smaller. And it's like, well, I need to be the one who's touching everything. I need to be the one who's doing PPC. I need to be the one who's sourcing the products. Like, if you have to hold on to every ounce of control, there is an inability to grow. And even worse yet is you actually don't learn what are the things that you're good at. And when I hear you talking through all the areas, I would say that you and I are somewhat similar in that regard. I'm not the best manager. I'd say I'm a good leader. I can empower the right people to make good decisions, and we can help create single threaded leaders, and I can pick talent and do all those things. Am I going to be the person who's, I kind of look at it like hunters and farmers. I'm not going to sit there and farm out the day in, day out practices because I'm looking to solve the next Rubik's Cube that's going to pop up into my world and whatever that looks like. And I'm going to work backwards to think how I can solve it. So I think that realization that you have, and I would say so few entrepreneurs have, and just great that we're talking about the topic of things that don't go to plan. That's where those learnings come from.
Well, I don't think that there's a single entrepreneur that doesn't make the same mistakes that I did of trying to do it all, because like oftentimes we're terrified, but we still are overconfident. Like, we try to bite off more than we can chew. I think the successful entrepreneurs are the ones that have gotten through that growth phase and realized, ooh, I got to let go of 80% of this. But, we're supposed to be the go-getters. We're supposed to be the doers. We're supposed to be the ones that can handle everything. And I really think that it took me, maybe I'm more stubborn or hard-headed than most. It took me several pretty big failures and really some heartbreaks even in business to realize, like, hey, Tim, you have to be humble and realize you just suck at this. And now I joke about it. Like, people are just like, is he kidding? I'm like, no, I am literally joking about the fact that I suck about 80%. I suck at 80% of business, right? But But like I said, anybody that's successful has gotten to that breaking point where they realized, I've just got to pick my strengths. And we pick our strengths are really good. And if you look at, the best businesses, they're built with a combination of integrators and visionaries, right? Look at,
EOS.
Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Yeah, EOS. Look at, Walt Disney. Walt Disney is a great visionary, but Disney would have never been founded if it wasn't for his brother. And I think that you don't have to be one or the other. You don't have, one's not more important than the other. But when we look at like founders of really successful companies or even successful, very small companies, go out and find you a partner. If you're a visionary, find an integrator. If you're a visionary, hire an integrator. If you're an integrator, go out there and look for a visionary. I know people that meticulously day in and day out know how to do e-commerce, but they're never going to grow because they don't have like a wild charging, hey, let's try this, let's do this crazy, let's figure this out. But they can understand spreadsheets and finances and PPC nuances, the best of it, but they'll never grow. So that's I think one thing that a lot of us have to do is realize, hey, we've either got to hire, partner with, or outsource those things we're not good at and focus at things we are.
Yeah, I couldn't have put it better myself. To your point about the entrepreneurial operating system, EOS, and having, the way that it breaks down in Gino Wickman's work is the visionary who's driving the direction of the business, the integrator who's actually telling that mad person that, most of those ideas are pretty shit, but few of them are good. Let's implement them. And then you have all the implementers who are actually getting shit done. And so, to totally break it down into something simple to digest. But again, if you're really going to be successful, and success isn't just a monetary value, I would say, if I look at quantifying success, how do I do more of the things that I enjoy and I am good at, and empower other people to do the things that they are good at and they enjoy. And as a collective, we are super cohesive and can achieve a whole lot more together. And so I think when you look at that breakdown, having the team dynamic and, all the cliches, the sum is greater than the parts, and, that whole aspect of it, it's critical to the success of business and to the success of your sanity.
Yeah. And that's an important thing to know, sanity. Entrepreneurs, and I've talked about this before, but entrepreneurs are like 8 times more likely to have mental health issues or anxiety or depression than nearly anybody else, because we take everything personally. Our business success is our personal success, so yeah, we do have to be careful to stay sane in all of this and avoid drama and avoid, burnout, because that's one of the biggest things that we suffer from, because, it is all personal to us.
100%. I if I'm super honest with myself, I would say that I go through these ebbs and flows. I have moments where I'm absolutely on fire. I'm crushing every day, every week. Things are just moving in the right direction. And then, you do a whole lot of that. And in time, you're like, fuck, I've just put in a 70, 80-hour week consecutively for 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not giving myself enough time and space. And all of a sudden, the simplest thing, I'm more of a creative than a spreadsheets guy, but even looking at a basic spreadsheet, I'm just like, fuck that. I can't do it. I'm going to sit here and, have a few drinks or whatever I'm going to get up to instead, because it weighs on you. So I think that that aspect of balance and mental health and actually giving yourself a bit of breathing room as well, when you're going through these things is super key. It's another topic that I don't feel enough people are talking about.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's not addressed enough. And I think that the people that have figured it out put themselves on a much faster trajectory to success.
Definitely. It's about being able to manage sort of the input, and sort of, I think, also being okay with the outcome and the output too. As soon as you get to that level of maturity or realization that, you're never going to turn the dial 360 degrees in an instance, and it's going to be incremental change. And as long as there's a baseline level of consistency, and you have I'm very pragmatic when it comes to, I'm in the gym 3 days a week. I'm swimming twice a week. I walk the dog every morning for, a couple of hours in the morning. I take her to the beach. I have all these other things, meditation and gratitude journaling and all that stuff as well. I build my structures around those things so that I actually create balance in my life. And I feel that's another thing as well, when you talk about it's not about secrets. It's, everyone's on their journey and they're all trying to figure out what works for them. But I think that that's one of the things that a lot of people miss is like, how do I just spend more hours in front of the computer, where in reality, mate, we've all got 168 hours. No one else is, it's the great equalizer. So how do you become more effective throughout that whole process?
Yeah, agreed. It's like the great mystery, how do we solve this? How do we figure this out? Because if we could teach other people how to figure that out, we're gonna, be able to offer the most exclusive and expensive course out there.
Well, speaking of expensive, expensive and exclusive, but let's flip that. I'm just looking at the sign that you got there, Private Label Legion. I think that super impressive, and I love the mission, and I love the way in which you've built this free community that leads into a mastermind. And it's all about, and this is like very central to my life belief, is that it's all about value creation. How do I actually help first, create value before I ever request for a dollar, anyone's time, anyone to actually invest in whatever it is I've got going on. But mate, I'd love to hear a little bit more about Private Label Legion. I'm sure that people listening will probably get some value out of it too.
Yeah, basically for me, I realized that there wasn't going to be a course that was going to put me over their edge. There wasn't going to be a single consultant that's going to put me over the edge. When I realized like what put me over the edge in e-com success, it was literally just surrounding myself with people that were struggling like I am, smarter than I am in some ways, and going through the journey kind of at the same time as me, right? When I think about like going to conferences where I'd learned the most, it wasn't from the stage. It was sitting at a table or standing in a line at the coffee shop out in the lobby, just meeting someone random and having these great conversations, building relationships. So when I started Private Label Legion, it was actually not something I wanted to do, but I had friends and colleagues pushing me to do it. They're like, listen, you need to set a stage where other people can come in, hang out, learn some good, no BS information, not be sales pitched to all the time, right? Like just a safe space, right? And in turn, Tim, you'll learn a lot too. So I set it up. We started doing events. We partner with people like the ASD trade show in Vegas, and we run workshops there. We do meetups, we do socials. We have a free Facebook group. And I thought that was perfectly fine. I thought that was great. And then people said, hey, look, Tim, when you offer something and you don't offer something more, they get mad at you. Tim, you hint about all this stuff. You hint about these great methods, these great strategies, but like you're not sitting there teaching people what they are. And I'm like, well, I don't have time to teach people. I'm trying to run a business. Like I would need staff to put this together. So finally, what we did is we built something that was scalable, which is what we call the Centurion League, like the upper echelon of the Legion. And it is group coaching and mentoring. So I can scale it. It's not one-on-one consulting, but you still get the community. When we have multiple Zoom calls a week, and people jump on, it's family, it's community. The people that are brand new are hearing questions from other people they didn't even know to ask. They're learning. We have advanced sellers that are learning a ton from brand new sellers. Like it's a whole mix. I partnered with Norm Farrar on this, and it's turned out to be really cool. It's not a big moneymaker for us. We actually break even every month. We're at like a break even point between our membership dues because we try to keep it very inexpensive. But we have staff that runs everything and operates it, and it's super smooth. And we have all the recordings are edited and placed for members, like all that good stuff. So yeah, the Private Label Legion is not something that I intended on doing, but it's been a big part of my growth too. And I think it's important because there's so much crap out there. There's Facebook groups of 100,000 people that are just getting pitched to, and it's all bad information,
Yeah. I mean, I'm always shocked when I see when I see stuff in some of the bigger groups. Like, I'll see like something posted in the Helium 10 group, for example, and there'll be like 40 million VAs out of Pakistan, like liking and commenting on like, this guy's your guy. I'm like, what is going on over here? So I think that that's definitely something that's appreciated. It's almost like, and I think about this too, like we have such incredible partners that we work with and a ton of value creation that goes through all the people and all the things that we're doing in business. Like there's that push pull of like, yeah, you want to give away everything for free, but you also want to prevent all these shysters coming in who are just trying to like drum up business. So it's finding that balance.
Well, for me, I've found that the more I give, the more I receive. I don't ask for things. I don't ask for favors generally. I reach out as many times as I can just to connect as many people as I can. And I feel like I get like residual benefit from that, right? So prosper. You've been invited to a pretty exclusive party, right? That I'm
Not
throwing.
forget just the exclusiveness about the party. The greatest promotion I've ever seen.
The invite is
Oh,
good.
dude, you are creative on another level.
But thank you. But like that party, it's over the top. It's crazy. It's going to be just absolutely ridiculous. It's extremely expensive, but I don't ask people to help me. I'm not asking you to help me pay for that. And it's not about me. I just know, and I've learned that like when I put myself out there and I take the time to host these crazy events, like it helps me build relationships that are going to help benefit me, and it'll help you benefit by building a relationship with someone else that you might not get some one-on-one time with, So like the more I just put out there in the universe, the more people I connect, the more favors I can do, not ask for, but do, the more I can help people, the more free advice I can give. Like it just benefits everybody. Last week, I was in Austin, sat down with a company with a huge team of operators and spent 2 hours just trying to help them figure out how to optimize their product selection criteria. I didn't ask them to pay me. I didn't ask them to pay me to fly down there, but like, I know that I will learn something there that will benefit me, or they'll refer me for something else. Like it might take 2 years to get some ROI, but it works. And whether you're a service provider, whether you're an e-commerce seller, like put yourself out there. I tell e-commerce sellers all the time, like quit trying to go buy another course. You don't need to join your 12th mastermind. You don't need to go to your 82nd event this year. Spend some time in a Facebook group and answer questions. If someone has a question, they're a newbie and all these, morons responded, jump in there and, hey, I think I know the answer to this. This is what I think. You can spend 20 minutes sending somebody a public response, answer their question of something that you actually know the answer to. And like, it opens up relationships. People will start recognizing you and start helping you. If I go in a big Facebook group and ask a question every day, people are going to stop responding. But if I answer 10 questions a week, when I really need some help, man, people are going to bend over backwards to help me. So spend some time building up relationships, building up networks. When you're trying to help somebody else figure out their problem or their issue or something they need to make themselves better at, you're going to learn doing that too. So give more than you intend to get, and you will typically get more than you gave. And that's kind of what I figured out by accident. And it's my philosophy for anything from learning how to sell an e-com or spreading to Walmart or business development, whatever it is.
Mate, it's a valuable lesson in life, and I got to say, I have a very similar philosophy, and I experienced it. I mean, we've never had this conversation before, but I'm a burner. So I spent when I was living in the States, I used to go, and also I've flown there a couple of times since moving to Israel. But one of the principles is the gift of giving without the expectation of reciprocation, and so. Yep. I think when you have that mental shift of, I like to sort of break it down to, when you go to a bar, simplest example, you and I are sitting at the bar, I buy the first round, and then I'm already in my head, I'm saying historically, thinking, all right, well, Tim's going to get the next one. And as soon as you let that go and you say, well, you know what, I like Tim, him and I, we get along. I'm buying him a beer because I want to get him a beer because I love his company. And that's all it is to me. There's no expectation of reciprocation. There's like a wonderful thing that happens, I think, from I'm getting a little bit woo-woo here, but like a little bit higher level in life, where as soon as you stop expecting anything in return, and it's just, what can I do to improve someone else's experience? What can I do to actually genuinely help someone? You feel a whole lot better about it, but all of a sudden, like, it spreads and it multiplies. And, I'll sit here at the end of this call and I'll think, shit, who else can I introduce Tim? I mean, he knows everyone, but who else can I introduce him to that's going to help have impact in his life, in business and beyond? Like, what are the things that I can do to support someone that, I have a relationship, a connection with? And so I think, when you talk about scaling businesses, when you talk about any form of personal or business growth, as soon as you turn that focus outward and you think about what can I do for others, the whole world opens up for you. I think it's a really powerful point that you make there. Well, I know that we're getting late into this, and mate, I seriously just love sitting and having chats with you. But I mean, you got tons of things going on here. Before I let you leave, how would someone get in touch with you? What would they get in touch with you for? What are the opportunities that you're going after at the minute?
I definitely don't want to give any sales pitches or anything like that. But if anybody, has a question about e-commerce, they can I would say go to our free Facebook group, Private Label Legion, the one that Norm Farrar and myself run. Ask any questions you have there. And we even have like VAs that scour those questions. And even though I might not go in the group very often, we can get the answers in. If you have a question or you have a thought or something more business development related, look me up on LinkedIn. You can find me pretty easily there. And you know, I do watch for those messages coming in. That's the best place to do that. Kind of segmenting my e-com versus my business development personas.
Love it. Well, Tim, again, really appreciate you jumping on and having a chat. I feel like I learned a lot and got a deeper look into sort of why I would say you are as successful as you are and why you're as capable as you are. You're super aware of where you sit and the value that you bring to the table. You're not trying to take everything on. And I think that's super admirable. And, you know, I try and also, you know, mirror that or coin what I'm going to look like in that regard too. So mate, again, thanks so much for sitting down. I'm sure people got a lot out of this.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me on. I know it takes a lot of work to put these together, so I don't take that lightly. So I appreciate you doing that for everybody that's listening.
Yeah, you would know, mate, with the AMP podcast. So yeah, no, again, mate, thanks a lot.